been thinking together about the afterlife, and we've been spending a great deal of time about the good side of the afterlife according to Jesus. And one of the things we've seen together is that when Jesus talks about the afterlife, he has told us, and we've seen that the afterlife is like a city. And that city is in a new heaven and a new earth. And that strangely, when we talk about heaven, heaven isn't out there somewhere, heaven is here. And where all things will be made new. And we've seen that this city is a city. It pictures all the activity of city life. And it has gates, which means you come into the city and go out of the city. And that causes us to ask, where are they going in this new heavens and the new earth? And then we saw that this city is where God dwells. And it's a holy city. And every bit of injustice that's ever taken place in the earth and in your life will be made right and set straight there. And every tear that you have cried, and every time you've been sinned against, and every pain you've known will be healed there and personally wiped away. And then we saw that it's a global city, that every culture, every language, every ethnicity will be there. And all the glory of every culture, everything beautiful, not only about you as an individual, but everything beautiful and resonant with God and Christ in any culture, all of its dignity and honor will be on display there. And so in this city, we'll be able to participate in the nations of the world, fully redeemed, without pain anymore, and fully set right. And we saw that the city is like a wedding feast. It's like a place of elaborate love. And that we are the bride. We're like the bride coming to a wedding. And the groom, though he is the rider of the white horse, though he is Alpha and Omega, though he is the Lion of Judah, though he is the King of kings and Lord of lords, our groom will relate to us forever as the Lamb. With the scars of his love, battles fought to win us, defend us, and bring us to himself. And in that union and companionship, we will be like kings and queens, reigning on thrones. It will be as if we have no scarcity of resources, and every bit of creativity that you artists love, you will be able to create forever. And every bit of working with your hands that you handy people love, you will have all resources at your disposal to create forever. And all of us, kings and queens, will rule the way kings and queens of Jesus would rule, which is out of humility, serving the least, as it were, seeing the greatest as the least. And if it were possible to be as the least in the kingdom of heaven, we will be honored as great. And everywhere we go, no envy, no competition. And in our various seats in that place, those of us with 1 talent, and those of us with 3, and those of us with 5, we won't complain that we aren't what this person had or that person had, because heaven is a place of love, and all of us with the Lamb will be lifting each other up. And we will only give thanks. And we will always be learning, because even though we are made perfect, we are finite. And only God himself is infinite. And that means forever there is something new to learn, to grow in, to grasp. Not only about what is future, but about what has been past, because we will not be spirits floating on clouds with harps, but you will be you and I will be me. And we will know that we sat here right now and we talked just like this, and we will know each other. We will have our memory. We will know where we've been. It won't be all erased. Instead, we will be the people we were created to be, with the names we were given and the grace lavished upon us. And for all eternity, we will individually be community. We will not be disentangled, disembodied. We will not absorb into one great energy. We will forever have our individuality and our cultures, because all of that was created by God. And today, we want to now say that this new city, this heavenly city is an angelic one. It is Los Angeles, the city of angels, in the truest sense of the word. The city, it had a great high wall. We've read these passages before. We keep coming to them and then noticing different parts of them week by week. The city had a great high wall with 12 gates, and at the gates, 12 angels. And the angels are numerous. I looked and I heard around the throne of the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, myriads of myriads, thousands and thousands. Revelation chapter 5, verse 11. I want to pause here as soon as I say that we talk about heaven, and we are talking about something supernatural. And as soon as I say angels, perhaps you're listening in, or someone you know listening in is rolling your eyes, and you're thinking, this is why I don't go to church. We say to ourselves, there is no supernatural. So I'd just like to ask you to consider a few things, if you know a friend like that, or if you yourself are like that. You're believing a story about life, and you're believing that the world is a flat world. It's a disenchanted world. That is, there are only animals and places, only muscle, chemicals, and bone, and nothing more. No God, no angels, no afterlife. When we die, we just die. Whether you are a criminal or a victim, no one will care, because no one will remember. And it will not have mattered one way or the other, because there is no judgment. So, in that flat world, I have to say just a couple things to ask you to consider. One, not all scientists agree with you. Not all scientists agree with you. That's just important to know, historically and presently. Second thing is that that point of view is a minority point of view. In the history of the world, and right now in the global world, the idea that this is a flat world and that there is no supernatural is by far a minority point of view. Almost everyone in the world believes in the supernatural in some way. That doesn't make it true. It does invite us to humility. Another thing to think about is to be careful, because when we're pursuing a flat world point of view, we're trying to be humble, we're trying to follow evidence where evidence leads, and we're not trying to be gullible, and we don't like it when people try to impose absolutist points of view on us as if they have all knowledge. But be careful, think about the tension that you're in. Because if you say that there is no supernatural, here's what you have to say. You have to say that every person who has ever lived in the history of the world, if they believed in the supernatural, we must call them a fool, gullible. And that puts you in a position of absolute knowledge. You are declaring what is true, even though you weren't there. You've never talked to eyewitnesses. You've never read accounts. You can only speak one language. Some of you, 5 languages, 3 languages, all the languages of the world, and everything that's ever been declared and recorded about what people have experienced. You're in the position of saying you know already that they were all gullible. And that puts you in an odd spot, doesn't it? Somehow you're claiming to know everything about all people everywhere on this point. And the other challenge about that is this: you can't do that through science. That is an act of faith. I mean, right? You can't scientifically prove that anybody, anywhere, who's ever said they encountered something supernatural was wrong. You can't prove that through the wonder of science. That's a faith statement. As a matter of fact, I'd like to say that Christians at their best are actually more rational. Because at their best, Christians differ from Hume. We say this. Hume said this. From the outset, miracles are impossible. Therefore, if we see any evidence to the supernatural, we know already that it's wrong. It's an error. We just need time and we'll be able to prove it. And that means no matter what evidence, no matter what, it's discounted. The Christian point of view is different. The Christian point of view says this: let's take each situation on its own merits and let the evidence tell us what it tells us. And so, sometimes something was claimed to be supernatural and it was a farce. And if we were gullible, we acknowledge it. We admit it. That wasn't true. We have that capacity as Christians. And sometimes something looked supernatural. Later on, we realized it wasn't. We were able to explain what happened. And then sometimes something seemed supernatural. And the only way we know how to account for it is to say it was. It seems like the Christian position gives us a much more open mind to let evidence be what it is and situations to be what they are and people to be taken seriously in their experiences in the world. Well, we might differ on that, but we're still able to be in relationship and talk and learn together, dialogue about these things. But as a follower of Jesus, the reason that I pursue, and at this church, this community pursues this kind of situation with the supernatural is because Jesus believed in the supernatural and we're followers of Jesus. So Jesus, as the Bible and history present him, believed in angels. If you were with him, you would have heard him talk. He could have shared his own personal experience. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 11, Jesus personally experienced the ministry of angels. He was dealing with the worst perpetrator of evil, the devil, and he was ministered to by angels. And Jesus had a first-hand experience with angels, it says, on the night he was betrayed. He was dealing with the fact that he was about to face betrayal from a friend, and that he was about to go through the most brutal of deaths for the most unjust of reasons. And the angels ministered to him. No wonder the earliest Christians described angels as ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation. Now, you see that phrase now, and if you've been listening in over the last few weeks, you know there's a whole story behind those two words, inherit salvation. That's talking about the afterlife and everything that's a part of it. And as we've already seen, that city is an inherited city. That is, it didn't belong to us. We had no right to it. None of our works earned it. But one who loved us gave us what belonged to him out of his grace. It's an inheritance. And those who have that inheritance by grace in Jesus have ministering spirits sent to comfort them. This means that the early Christians thought like this. Look, let's keep loving each other, Hebrews 13:2. Let brotherly love continue. And do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, because sometimes we entertain angels and we don't know it. That means that at the corner of Big Bend and Grant Road, just down from the elementary school and Freddie's Market, you just might encounter a heavenly being. And you did so because you were showing the love of Christ to someone you didn't know. And the word stranger there likely has the idea of a foreigner. And the one who was foreign, that is, the immigrant, the refugee, turned out to be an angel. Well, Jesus, when he talked about angels, you know what? He said they were his. Bold. Jesus says, that angels exist. The word angel means messenger. These are messengers from God, and they belong to him. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world? This is what you would hear him teach. And forfeits its soul. Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay each person according to what he's done. As a matter of fact, the Lord Jesus tells a number of short stories, and angels often figure as characters in his short stories. And when Jesus told these parables, what he was doing was using fiction to tell a truth. He would tell a parable, a story with characters, and then he would say, listen, and then he'd walk on. And if you were humbled by it, you would humble yourself and you'd go to him and say, pardon me, I don't know what that story means. Would you tell me what it means? It's like going to the artist. You wrote this song, you wrote this poem, you painted this. What's it supposed to mean? And so they would go to Jesus and ask him what it means. And I have to tell you, if in your mind you have Jesus as this gentle, only meek, only mild, never disagrees with anyone, always wants to please everyone idea, just reread the Gospels in the next month. Let's just look at one of his short stories, because often the angels are pictured by Jesus in the context of the end of all things, when we all stand before God and give an account of our lives. One of those stories is a farmer who sowed good seed in his field. And when the farmer and the workers all went to sleep, they woke up the next morning and they were shocked to find that the field now had weeds sown in it. And Jesus tells this story, and we learn the farmer has an enemy, and the enemy is trying to undo the farmer's work. And Jesus tells this story, and people go to him and they say, what does this mean? And Jesus says this, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's the bad side of the good place. It has been hinted at all along. The bad side of the afterlife. Jesus teaches it plainly. We'll come back to that. But notice here, it's the angels who will be the ones coming with Jesus to separate out, to show mercy and justice. This is why when the Princess of Norway started her school for the angels, we see a good contrast between other points of view in the world and Jesus' point of view. Princess Martha started the Astarte Education Center with the hope of helping students create miracles by using the power of angels that she, from a very young age, found she was able to communicate with. Through horses, I learned to communicate with animals on a deeper level, she says. I later learned the value of this enormous gift, and I want to share it with others. What's remarkable here is her heart. She wants to help people. And she's attuned to the supernatural. She's aware this is not a flat world. And she's trying to account for how the fullness of an enchanted world comes to bear on an ordinary life. And she wants to pass it on. She wants to use her power and privilege and platform to help people make contact with what is supernatural and to find gentle healing in this life. And so she started a school, which eventually closed, but she started a school to teach people to make contact with angels. Now the idea here is that you, in the real world, could summon an angel and then direct that angel to be of help to you. What you want to know there is that according to Jesus, this isn't how it actually works. According to Jesus, angels aren't summoned by us, and they don't bow to us. We have no authority in their life. Angels bow to God, and Jesus is their authority, and angels are sent and summoned by God, not by us. And so if we were to desire to make contact with the supernatural, Jesus would say that that is done through him. And that's how we know God. And that if an angel were to be needed in our life, God would know that. God would send. And so, Jesus differs. His point of view differs. And that's why we have this reality that Jesus, the earliest Christians would say this, Hebrews 1, Jesus is superior to the angels. That's why they would say, we recognize we're in an enchanted world. We recognize God has created beings, not just human. We recognize that he, for his own purposes, will send them on our behalf in Christ. But we also recognize we don't worship angels. Our keen interest isn't to sort out and sift out angelic stories. Our interest is Jesus. For everything seen and unseen, including every angel, bows to him. Jesus is Lord, King, even of angels. And so some of us dismiss Jesus in light of a flat world, but others of us dismiss Jesus with an enchanted world. We are looking for angelic experience apart from the Lord of angels and the one to whom they belong. And the place of supernatural experience for us is meant to be found through Jesus. Now, what does this mean? As Nick and Michelle come up, what does this mean for how we go about a day in this earth with angels? And how would we recognize an angel? And what will the good side of the afterlife be like in that city in which every tribe, tongue, and nation is represented, and we are walking beside angels? What will that mean for us?